All right, we're behind schedule. So let's
Right.
get with it.
Let's get
If you
crack-a-lackin'.
joined us in the first one, thanks for suffering, and it was very long. We're going to try to keep these to more around that 20-minute time frame. So we're going to try to stay on task and get with it. In our last podcast, Becky, we talked about
We talked about a good day.
a good day.
And what are the tenets of a good day? What does it take in order for us to create good days in the environment that we're in?
Correct. And as leaders, what we can't do is force people to have a good day. We can't force people to be productive. We can't force people to like our company. We can't force people to like us or the other components of the team. Effective leaders, and the ones that I've always been enamored with, are the ones that understand they can create an environment for results, an environment for safety, an environment for productivity, an environment for inspiration and ideation. And when you create the right environment, you create the ability to have a good day. And if your folks are having more good days than bad days, then you really start to unlock some magic in the potential of your group.
Absolutely. So that brings us to today's topic of a perfect week.
Which is, boy, does that sound good.
How does good day tie to a perfect week?
Yeah, how do you make it happen?
Exactly. It's the content that helps create good days. You can't just go to your team and say, hey, I want you to have a great day today.
Do it or else.
Does it work?
I've worked for leaders that say that.
You've tried that.
I think there's an old cliche saying that says the beatings will continue until morale improves. You've heard that, yes?
I have heard that, but I tried to forget it.
We've lived it.
We have lived it.
So how then do we manipulate an environment to where people can have a good day? And I think we need to address, I think in today's modern leadership, there's a fear that if people are having fun, they're not doing their job.
I tend to agree with you. It makes me sad.
Why?
Honestly, that statement makes me sad. We spend, if you think about it, I'm not a mathematician, but if you're spending 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, at a minimum, that's 50 hours a week of your time at a place that you're not having fun. Why are you doing it?
Because I have bills to pay. My kids have iPhone 16 Pro Maxes.
Absolutely. But that doesn't really.
But we only get one life.
Yeah.
So let's live it to our best.
Let's enjoy the things that we do. And enjoyment doesn't mean that you're having a great time all the time, every day. Enjoyment means that overall,
you're achieving fulfillment in the work you're accomplishing.
Yeah, you're feeling good about the things that you're doing and the way in which you're choosing to spend your time.
So today we're going to talk about perfect week and how we set the environment for our teams to be able to achieve or not achieve, but to have the availability of good days.
Correct.
So if you're a leader out there, the reason you should stay tuned in with us is what we want to do is give you practical tools to what a perfect week looks like and how as a leader you can affect a perfect week and give your folks the opportunity for a good day. If that sounds interesting to you, welcome to our channel.
Yes, welcome to our channel. This is going to be an exciting journey. So you know that perfect week is something that I'm rather passionate about.
And I don't know if anybody else out there is having this problem, but in matrixed environments, I think especially, local decision-making gets lost and elevated to higher and higher levels of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going through a cross-matrix journey, which we can podcast. If that's interesting, comment, and we can talk about that at a different time. But the struggle that we were having was we had lost at relatively high levels. Site leaders didn't have the decision-making abilities that they needed. And think about the cascade of bad days that comes from not having the litmus of control of your team, your destiny, your plan, your strategy, your cost, your P&L, etc.
Correct. At that time, all decisions had to go up levels in order to be able to get to a decision point.
And that wasn't exclusive to where we are. There's an unbelievable merit to a cross-matrix organization, but it changes the dynamic of communications. I was embroiled in good day. And I knew the magic. The magic is I have 4,000 people that work for me. How do I get 4,000 people to have the opportunity to have a good day every day across 9 places, 6 states, the whole 9? And I was struggling with that. And my boss came in, and what he was struggling with is, how do I restore local decision-making? And those two very much coincide.
Absolutely. We were spending all of our time talking about what laid in the past, what had already,
Results and that
what had already happened. And we were trying to figure out what happened. And people were spending all of their time looking in the rearview mirror. And we needed to really transition people to looking forward, looking out into the future, and having, levels of leadership focused on the right time horizon in the future. If you're an executive in an organization, you should not be looking at what's happening today or even this month. You should be looking at you should spend your time, energy, and effort in the future. How am I setting my organization up for success in the future? If you're not doing that, then no one is. And part of the genesis of Perfect Week is getting people looking at the right time horizon for the work in which they can affect. And I think that really resonated with a lot of our leaders who are spending hours upon hours doing reporting on what had already happened and what was already
Thank you, Becky.
done.
So if you're out listening to us, there's point number 1. Part of a perfect week is making sure that the appropriate levels of leadership are focused on the appropriate time horizons. A supervisor of direct individual contributors.
Yeah.
Should be thinking about today, this week, next week, right? I would want the bulk of their time making sure that this week is going to be excellent.
The people that they're supervising have what they need to be able to complete the work of today.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if I wait till today to get that in front of them, I've lost.
Yep. It's too late.
A manager should be looking at next week, this month. Are we going to run out? We're going to have a great week, but we're going to come in Monday and have nothing to do, or we're going to be short, right? And I know there's multiple layers of manager and multiple scope. I get it, but you start to set that. As you get into higher level, then let's jump up to maybe director level. Are we talking about this month, this quarter? As you get into VP, we're talking about quarter, half year, and above, executive vice president, et cetera. You should literally be looking at, H1, H2. With a small amount of time, you should be looking at your 3-5-year strategy, and CEOs and the good ones that I've worked for are looking at 3-5-year. What am I doing? Where are we placing our capital? Where's our big bets? What's our moonshots? And how am I really driving this organization to the right return, etc. If you're out there and you disagree, I'd love to hear it. You and I did not invent a lot of this. It comes from Leadership Pipeline.
It does.
And we are subscribers. So that is a education all in itself. Discussion for another time.
Conversation for another time.
Now, positional boundaries is point number 1. Point number 2 through 6, I think, is a lot of things that I think people forget to think about in the fires of today. So if you're not focused on the right time horizon, you really start getting captured by the daily fire, which is problematic because it's also a drug. It feels really good to solve problems today.
That's how we reward people. As a matter of fact, if you're a hero in an organization, meaning you come in and you save the day because you fixed a fire of today, that gets more attention and more reward than someone who sets the right strategy for us to win in the next month, in the next quarter, in the next year.
Because then success happens and it's not as attributable to the person wearing the cape.
Absolutely.
So, but if what you want is an environment of success, you actually share the cape with a bunch of people and you take away the need for a hero.
So let's talk about the contents of what's in a perfect week.
Perfect.
What else is part of the components of a perfect week?
Here's one that probably we're going to run out of time, but availability.
What does availability mean to you?
To me, and I think this is very contextual to our audience and what they're listening to, but availability is the availability of the things that I need in order to do my job. If I'm a welder, and we talked about welders in Good Day.
We are clearly brought up in the manufacturing environment.
And
you're in a service industry now, but it's the same regardless of the business.
If you're a welder and you don't have the steel you need, you start off with a bad day and you start off with an expectation that I can't get the work done.
If you're an engineer and your computer doesn't work, day is shot.
And, what we talked about last time is not having the right designs or the right spec or the right understanding. Mm-hmm. In any capacity, if you don't have the right communication of expectation, you don't have the availability of what you need to get the job done. If you're a doctor and you run out of scalpels,
that's a problem.
I would hope so. Or sponges or sterilite or hand washing solution. I don't know what they probably have. I know that's what we use. I would like to think that they use something that has a fancy.
I think they still use soap. It might have a little more kill your bacteria ingredients in it, but it's still soap.
So if they ran out of, and I disagree with you, super scrub, if they run out, they're done.
Correct.
Now, that could be scrubs, that could be the booties that go over their shoes, that could be, power.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something we can manage before the week starts?
Absolutely.
Correct. And on every level and every tier of leadership, there is a need that the people, your direct reports and your immediate subordinates have in order to come in and not have to want for something during that week. So that's availability.
Availability. What's next on a perfect?
Next for me is teams and culture.
Teams and culture. That's an interesting one. Tell us about what that means.
Well,
in the vein of perfect week, because everybody's on a team.
And
everybody is part of a culture.
What's popular in leadership right now is doing surveys. Everybody does surveys, and what's our surveys?
My skin crawl just when we start talking.
I think it's good and bad. Like all things, if all we eat is broccoli, we're not going to be healthy. But if we put a nice amount of broccoli in our diet, and I think that's where surveys are. If we apply it as a part of the diet, I think it can be very healthy. It's just not the total. It's not our sole substance. So teams and culture. And here's what's interesting is, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
I don't. I really admire that animal. So
elephants are on our coasters.
They are on our coasters. But yes, one bite at a time. So how do I break that down into what my team needs culturally next week? And I think this is really profound. And it's something you should be thinking about weekly. If we just finished a project or finished a surge or we finished a swim lane or we finished a push, we finished, whatever we're in, if we just did an accomplishment as a team and we're all validated, next week we might need a culture night. We might need to go out and engage. I might, for a team and a culture, say, hey, this week I'm going to lower expectations because I want everybody to recoup, but I also want you to know the week after, we're going to get back in it and get to here. That might be very viable. But it might be something corrective. I might be very toxic. I might be having a bad time. I might be having something happening in my own life that is bleeding into. Can I manage that? If I know I have a teammate that's struggling, Can I do something and not let them poison the whole well?
We're going to come to the table with respect for people and the environment in which we work. And culture is really a reflection of all of those small pieces that you put together, the pieces of the things that you allow.
Correct. And you make it fair, you make it equitable, and
Absolutely.
you apply it to everybody. Totally agree. Teams and culture. We could do
spend a lot of time
series on teams and culture, but I love where you put that.
We've been a part of really great.
What am I going to allow next week?
Yes.
To have a perfect week. And allow sounds really dictatorial. What am I not going to allow, or what is subversive to the culture we want to build? Yep. And I'm just going to address it.
Right.
And we're going to do it.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. Next installment is equipment.
What is equipment?
Equipment is the tools that we need in order to perform our job.
Could be a pencil.
Could be a laptop. Could be a surgical table. Could be a dentist's chair. If that chair doesn't go up and down, I promise you, the work product is different. Could be a welding machine. Could be a air conditioner. Could be a light bulb. If equipment doesn't work, why are you asking your people to work? And how are you asking them to work? And if they have to grind through that and grind through that and grind through that, it creates a culture of no one cares. Have you ever been somewhere and you see something broken that somebody's just living with?
Grinders.
And you say, hey, why don't we get that fixed? And somebody goes, I've told them and nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
So addressing equipment needs, addressing, every Monday we come in and my computer has to update right when I log in, etc. Well, can we talk to the IT department and see if we can get that done on Sunday afternoon and not Monday morning? Those are things that leaders can impact.
It is.
Next installment after equipment is the facility. And these blur a little bit, but not a ton. If the lights don't go on, if my badge doesn't work and I can't get in and I have to call somebody, if my desk chair
If I work in a
Have you ever
manufacturing
worked somewhere where the gas thing on your chair continues to bleed all day and you
and you
might
sit down to the
and
floor
it
by the
just
time
over? Yes. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're fine. In a manufacturing environment, which is where you and I have both worked for more than 20 years in a manufacturing environment. And when I do manufacturing tours, one of the first places I go is the women's restroom. We do not have
Not
a lot of
have them, do they?
women in manufacturing. It's more now than it was when I started 20 years ago. Oftentimes, it's overlooked to have a facility where women can use the restroom. I know you have stories about this. You and I have talked about this several times. But I think this is a tenet of, is your facility set up for all of your team members to be able to be comfortable in their environment, to be able to output the best that they can output, but also to be able to take care of their daily needs.
But it creates a culture of care or a culture of not care. And when you affect one, there's always a domino effect in affecting others. So facility is very important. You cannot expect someone to have a good day that has to walk a half mile to use the restroom.
It shows that we're not necessarily great at caring for our team members, which is a core tenet of that good day philosophy.
And sometimes I think it's just observational. We're so captivated, and you said this earlier, there's so much stuff out there with KPIs and performance metrics and all of the things, and we're spending so much time thinking about what went wrong. And we're captivated and you're just overwhelmed with all of the stuff that it feels like you're wasting your time to talk about bathrooms, or wasting your time to talk about airflow, or wasting your time to talk about the things that people have to live in that environment. And if those are bad, it's very hard to have a good day. The last one that I formulate for my teams, and I think this is an unbelievably important one, and that is excellence. It's hard to have a good week next week if somebody doesn't tell me how to win it.
You have to know what it takes to win.
What does success look like, and how do I know if I'm doing a good job? And if you're listening to us, thank you. Great to have you. Here's what I would ask you. If you're a leader in any capacity, doctor, lawyer, service, ops, when's the last time when addressing your team, you told them very specifically, from your perspective, what success looks like? Hey guys, next week we will be successful if, and you will be personally successful, and I will really have a lot of admiration for the team. And I don't mean it in a coercive, nasty way, just quite, here's where success lives, and if we can get this done. And I think there's nuance there, because it's really easy to say, hey guys, we got to sell 58 cars next week or we're going to get in trouble. No. Hey, Becky, you're really progressing. You're doing a nice job. Last week you sold 5 cars. If you can do that again this week, that is great. And it might not even be selling cars. It might even just be, if you can really engage, the reason you sold 5 is because you really had some people really believing that, oddly, Ford is a good brand. How do we build on that?
One of the things that I've started to use with my team is this phrase: how do you paint the picture of what good looks like?
I like that.
And I think that from my seat, oftentimes I know in my mind what I want the end product to be. I don't necessarily know the steps from here to get there. I really need my team to be able to be comfortable to figure out what those steps are and execute on them. And so a lot of times what I find myself doing is saying, let me paint the picture of what good looks like from my seat. And then I will articulate what that looks like. It might be, hey, this is what this report I think should look like. It might be, hey, this is what I think success looks like for us on this initiative. What are the steps that we need? What are the things that we need? What are the tools that we need? What is it that you need to be able to get to that picture of success? And I find that painting the picture for the team makes a big difference in the journey, because they can fill in the pieces if they have line of sight to what the end game is.
It's my turn for story time.
Oh, man.
I know, and I'm going to go quick.
Okay.
This has to do with you and I specifically, and when we started to work together.
That feels like a problem.
It was. But I remember we used to go into meetings where, and we, for the listeners out there, we are organizational change agents.
I have just realized where the story is going.
We would stand against the current and change minds, change trajectory, change behaviors. And
we're not talking about standing against the current on a small trickle of a stream. We're talking about raging.
Organizational change with long-term employees. And
good afternoon, Robbie.
Well, good afternoon, Becky. What brings you back to the studio?
We had so much fun last time. I thought we'd come back and do this again.
Excellent.
I think that we are here because we believe we have a message to share around leadership and leadership development. And we've been on a journey, and we want to share our journey with others so that they may be able to take some things away from this podcast and apply them on their own journey.
Outstanding. I think you and I have created exceptional results both as a team and in our individual capacities. And we've done it in non-conventional ways as we've searched for ways to do it better and to treat people better and to have a more engaged culture and a healthy environment for results. So I think that is something that you and I like to consult on.
And speaking of fun, we committed to sharing bourbon.
We did.
While we have this conversation. So what's the bourbon we're sharing today?
Today is a very special bourbon. So if you're out there, neither one of us are large drinkers, but when we do it well. So what we're enjoying today, because we have him-hawed around about a podcast for a long time, I built a studio and we're finally putting it to use.
Absolutely.
So we're celebrating having our first one. Season 1, episode 1 is now in the can and it's published and we're receiving feedback. And to celebrate that, we pulled out a special bottle, which is a Blood Oath Pact 10. And it's very nice. If you like the Blood Oaths, this is a good one. So cheers to you, Becky.
Cheers.
And cheers to the world out there. Here's to us. Cheers. And here's to better leadership. I remember, actually, I could almost tell you what we were wearing, and this is at least a decade ago. But we were coming out of our corporate office, and we were walking across the parking lot, and you were red. You were angry. And I was elated and happy. And I remember I think through clenched teeth, you said, I don't understand why you're happy. We didn't get anything accomplished. We didn't get anything resolved, and we got nothing accomplished. And I was happy because with the participants we had in that meeting and the decision makers we had in the room, we actually opened the door for the conversation.
We got
previously.
Movement.
I don't even know if we got movement.
We got movement.
What we got was allowance to actually have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of explaining success is with 40 years employees that have always done it the same way and you need them to do different. Success for me was getting an allowance of the conversation. Success for you at that point was they should be totally doing something different and we didn't get them there. And how different our emotional input was to walking out of there. And I think organically, we weren't this smart back then, but organically we would start talking about, well, what are we trying to accomplish in this next meeting? And we would set our expectations of what success looked like. And I think that's how we graduated to here. But that was a very, do you remember?
I absolutely recall this. And, not to get too far down the road, but when we talk about change curve, as that'll be one of our sessions, this is a big component of leadership development for me, in that I learned that I have to really understand where people are and meet them where they are. And I think that's a good example of meeting them where they were.
And sometimes the greatest success we can do is getting someone to just think about something in a different context.
Absolutely.
Not doing something and not modifying behavior yet. The first step is just being able to conceptualize. So excellence. And I do want to throw a caution out there. And this has been a theme, I think, in this session. Looking at metrics is sometimes a fool's errand because you're looking at what happened previous, and the perfect week really, and I've frustrated some of my leaders.
It can be.
Because I've had leaders, and you've been in the room, I've had CEOs come to me and say, how is this going to end? Are we going to be positive and are we going to have the right results? And very affirmatively, I say, yes. And they'll say, well, what do the numbers say? I don't know. And then they get mad. Well, Robbie, how do you know that? And it's because I know the ingredients and what the numbers going into the equation. And I know it's going to result, and it always did. It always did. But I frustrated some people.
You did frustrate some people. And, part of that really comes down to not focusing on the numbers. And some of it, to your point, comes down to really understanding what people need to be successful. The Perfect Week helps people understand what it takes to be successful.
Correct. And I would build next week's numbers.
Yep. By focusing on these.
By the inputs today. And if I focus on the equation, I would only have one outcome.
If you focus on what's on after the equal sign instead of what's before.
You always chase.
You're always going to be chasing it. And I agree with you. I don't want our listeners to say, well, they don't think that metrics are important.
Oh.
I think that's actually.
It's the central nervous system.
It is. It's important to be able to measure and use data to make decisions, to adjust process,
right? To
understand what.
But it's the same as the central nervous system.
It is.
I can wait until I step on the nail to know that I'm in pain, or I can identify where the nail is and remove it and not feel the pain.
Yes.
Doesn't mean my central nervous system is less important. It means I'm thinking about the things in advance, so I don't have to experience that pain.
Right.
And I can do that culturally. I can do that with my teams, and I can create in advance the ability for my folks to have a perfect week.
And so I think if we tie this for our listeners together, what is the rear view mirror metrics? That's something that, is it important to measure? Is it important to do lessons learned? Absolutely. But you can also look at things forward looking.
It's a balance.
It's a balance between the two. And so take some time and look at the things that you measure. Is it always rear view mirror? Is it looking backwards? Or are you actually setting yourself up to success in the future and knowing that you're there?
So let's recap. We're way over time. We told you 20. This is our second one, and we're not very good yet. We're getting there. If you're still with us, send a comment. We'll call you.
We love feedback.
We do. Here's what we've told you. In season 1, episode 1, we really struggled through a good day. I think we've only had one bourbon. I think we had 2 or 3.
You did.
Fine. And we really kind of rambled. Hopefully we're a little bit more on topic. And so we talked about good day and why a good day is important to any organization. Today we've talked about how to construct an environment to allow your folks to have a good day, which we call Perfect Week. The next installment, episode 3, if you come back, is the construction of leader standard work that allows for a systematic way of having your folks focus on the right things in advance to be able to build those core tenets in a very ritualized, structured way that can be administered. I think a lot of people have a fear of leader standard work because it's too structured and the way that I think we've always done it is in a way where the right things are getting done, but without inhibiting creativity or entrepreneurship or doing the right things for the right people at the right time. And leader standard work, in my opinion, is what brings you to that.
Correct. And creating focus. Part of the challenge that we have, I think, in a lot of our organizations is that we require everyone to look at all things at all times. And the leader standard work model that you and I come from is really being able to help our team members understand what is their area of expertise and what are the things that they should be looking at. And it's not the same for everyone.
Correct. Want to thank everybody for tuning in, giving us a second chance. Hopefully we're looking for incremental gains and improvement.
We'll get better.
Still fun. I enjoyed this. Thanks for your time, Becky, coming and joining.
Thank you, Robbie.
Here.
I appreciate the time.
Thanks to our listeners. Here's to wishing everybody success in their leadership journey.
Excellent.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time.